Today I'm going to be answering one of your art questions about symmetry in your portraits. Does eyes really need to match perfectly? Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. Michael writes, "Hi Lisa, when drawing portraits, I try to get my drawing as accurate as I possibly can to the reference photo. But once I'm done with the drawing, all I can really notice are the imperfections in my subject's face. For example, most people usually have one eye that is slightly smaller to the other, an ear that might be slightly higher than the other, etc. When drawing portraits, should I attempt to fix those imperfections, making both eyes the same size, or should I just draw them exactly as shown on the reference photo?" Well, yes, people are not going to be 100% symmetrical. The differences are minor. I mean, one eye being smaller than the other, it's usually not a really noticeable difference unless you actually measure them on most people. Unless one's kind of squinting at the sun or something like that, where one eye is slightly smaller, then yeah, draw it as it is, because that makes sense being that the sun is hitting it the way that it is. This colored pencil portrait is actually a good example of that, where one eye is slightly squinting because of the way that the light is hitting. But let's say that's not the case. With most people, unless you're talking about someone like Shannon Doherty, whose eyes are noticeably not matching up, one's much higher than the other, you're not going to want to include that or worry about trying to include that in the portrait. For her, I would, because that's something she's kind of known for. But for most people, I wouldn't make the attempt to accentuate one eye being smaller than the other, because it would just look like you did something wrong. However, when you say, should I fix it, you probably won't need to unless it's an issue where the person's kind of squinting at the sun. And in that case, it depends on the situation. And I think in anything, it's going to depend on the situation, because there are times where I would adjust the eye just a little bit and times where I would intentionally leave it how it is. But you have to be careful when you look at something and you say, okay, this person's eye is smaller on this side than it is the other. I've seen a lot of times where people over accentuate that, and it makes it look like there's something wrong with the person, where they're kind of looking like this. I saw one recently where an artist, who is actually a very good artist on drawing things accurately, but he had really made the eye on one side, which was cast in shadow, accentuated the fact that that one looked smaller in the reference photo. The subject's eye was kind of a little bit squinty there. And then with the shading on top of that, it really made it look like there was something wrong with the model, not like the eyes just slightly didn't match how they would in life. So here was a case where, yeah, in the reference photo, that eye was slightly smaller. I suspect the artist had been overthinking that and then accentuated that fact. So he almost started moving into the realm of caricatures, where different things about the facial features are hyped up quite a bit. But like I said, for most people, those differences are going to be so minor that I don't think you really even have to think about them. In reality, when you're painting, I don't think your work is going to be exactly the same anyway. You are naturally going to end up with one eye that's slightly smaller, slightly larger. So it's going to happen on its own without you trying, but it should be so slight that most people don't even notice. Now, going back to where the light is hitting, where it makes the model kind of squint. If the model is squinting one eye smaller because she's kind of doing this, because their cheek is actually pushing up the eye, if you try to make this eye the same as this eye, but the cheek is still up here, nothing makes sense anymore. So in that case, if it's an issue of that person's expression that is causing one eye to be smaller, then I would probably include that. I would do it as the reference photo is, because the rest of the muscular structure is working towards that end. If you change this one thing, then the cheek being up here makes no sense. In the end, it really does come down to specific situations. It's not something where I would say always do one, always do the other. I think that you need to really look at that reference photo, look at that person, decide, is this because of expression and it should be smaller than the other, or is it because the lighting is giving the illusion that that eye is smaller even though it's not? I would probably go ahead and adjust the lighting to make sure that the eyes look symmetrical, because in that case, a lot of times people are going to think that you just painted or drew it wrong. So that may be a case where I would choose to adjust that from the reference photo and even them out. It just depends on the situation, but I don't generally try to make one bigger than the other because of the knowledge that most people have one eye bigger than the other. Because again, in that case, you have a tendency to over exaggerate those differences. I'm not sure how helpful my answer was, because it's basically, meh. It depends. I have a frequently asked questions page over my website. If you cannot find the answer to your question, there is a section where you can submit your own question to be featured in one of these videos. I will have a card pop up here so you can check that out. I would love to hear what you guys think. If you prefer painting where the eyes look as symmetrical as possible, or do you like to intentionally make one look slightly bigger than the other? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you've not already subscribed, there's a button you can hit right there that will help you to keep up to date with all five of my new art videos every single week. That's 10. I can't count.